That's the only thing the jury is weighing here. In fact, the judge at one point today said, as far as the jury is concerned, said the judge.
Joining the push to disqualify the DA, Fani Willis, at this hour, David Asman and Robert Wolf, and a special joint interview with Riley Gaines and surfer Bethany Hamilton. Cognitive disorders, but then she had her own when she made the comment about it. Can't make this up. Watch.
He tried to say that Nikki Haley did not allow the National Guard to come, but it was Nancy Pelosi. It wasn't nobody. It was just.
You got a lot of folks accusing each other of not being too sharp, and there are several older folks who are involved in this race. So what do you make of this? Because no doubt now you've got Nikki Haley going after President Trump, and obviously the questions about President Biden.
Well, first of all, Martha, the substance of the attack is absurd. I give a lot of speeches. Donald Trump gives a lot of speeches. Sometimes you misspeak. That's not because of cognitive impairment. It's because sometimes you misspeak when you offer thousands of words a day out on the campaign trail. Nobody who talks to Donald Trump would believe that he is cognitively impaired. He's as sharp as a tack. He's very energetic, and I think he has the energy not just to win the presidency, but to govern. But this actually drives home, Martha, one of the fundamental problems with Nikki Haley's campaign. Does she think that falsely accusing Donald Trump of being impaired in some way is actually because she's too proud to admit that her campaign has failed and voters have rejected her? That's not a recipe for Republican success. That's a recipe for Nikki Haley's ego, and we don't need any of it.
You know, we get to this point a lot in campaigns over the years, which I have covered several of them now. So everybody out. And granted, very difficult path for Nikki Haley at this point. She, New Hampshire was clearly the best state that she had to make her argument in. But what difference does it make if she wants to spend a few more weeks on the campaign trail and see how well she can do in her home state? It feels like between this effort at the RNC to push her out and all of this, that
the voters have spoken in Iowa and New Hampshire. They're going to speak all over the country. So really the question is not, is Donald Trump the nominee? He will be. The question is, how many resources do we waste on a fruitless campaign, and how many do we actually devote to defeating the Democrats in November? Every single dollar that Nikki Haley siphons off from Republican donors, that's money that we're not spending on Senate Republicans to help us take back the majority on the Republican side. That's money that we're not spending to defeat Joe Biden. So I think it's healthy for the party to say at a certain point, voters have made clear the party wants to go in a particular direction. It wants to go in the direction of Donald Trump. So let's help him rather than use the party resources to hurt him.
I understand your point, and we'll see where that goes. I want to ask you, this is a soundbite from the UAW president, Shawn Fain, who is coming after the former president, saying that he doesn't stand with the American worker. I know that you supported these workers when they walked out. Here's Shawn Fain. I want to get your reaction to this.
Nowhere in history has Donald Trump ever stood for the American worker. He stands against pretty much everything that we stand for.
We know Joe Biden really wants to get the union back on his side. This is going to be one of the battles we're watching. What do you think about it, Senator?
Well, first of all, I believe during that same interview, Martha, Shawn Fain said that a majority of his workers would actually be voting for Donald Trump. So he might want to trust his own workers, who I think are voting with their feet and saying that Donald Trump was a great president for workers and he would be again. Here's the fundamental problem with Shawn Fain's approach. Every time we subsidize electric vehicles that are made in China, union workers in the state of Ohio and across the country lose their bargaining power and they lose their jobs. Joe Biden's green energy agenda has been a massive subsidy to the middle class in China, built off the backs of the middle class in Ohio and all across the Midwest. If you're an auto worker in Michigan or Ohio, you want good jobs, you want fair wages, you want bargaining power, you better elect Donald Trump for president because Joe Biden is trying to ship your job overseas. It's that simple.
Well, it's a subject you know well. You've written about it for a long time, and it's going to be at the heart of getting those rural voters, union voters in many of these states as we go through this election. So, Senator, thank you very much. It's always good to talk to you. Thanks for coming
Likewise. Thank you.
So this story is extraordinary. A California murderer. Marijuana is legal in, I think, almost every most states these days. And in many cases, it has a potency that it didn't used to have. It can induce this kind of psychosis, but no jail time in this murder. What do you make of this?
It's unbelievable to me. I mean, this woman, this defendant, was found guilty by a jury trial of involuntary manslaughter in the state of California.
That's correct.
You know, the prison sentence could have been up to 4 years, and she walks away with, this is why it is dangerous to make marijuana legal. But I think there's a more important thing to look at here, Martha. It was the judge at the end of the day. She was convicted by a jury. It was the judge at the end of the day who determined the sentence. The complete leniency, what state was it in? California. That says a lot. That really does say a lot about this instance.
Yeah, I want to correct myself. I said murder. She wasn't convicted with murder. She, correctly, as you said, she was convicted of involuntary manslaughter in this case. I just wonder how many times we're going to see this defense, though, because, you know, given the fact that marijuana is legal in so many places, and if you substitute alcohol for this, if she was drunk out of her mind when this happened and she was stabbing him, would she have gone to jail, or would she be getting probation in this case, do you think?
Right. I mean, if you're driving a vehicle and you're drunk and you hit somebody and they are killed, you could be charged with manslaughter for that with a vehicle. In the state of California, they have that as well. And again, I think it goes back to this individual judge. Depending on what jurisdiction you're in, what venue you're in, she obviously was the judge was extremely lenient on this defendant. And as an FBI agent, I saw this multiple times where agents across the country, depending on what jurisdiction you're working in, you could investigate similar crimes. And depending where you are, your suspect or subject is going to get a completely different sentence. But this is not good. This does not set a good precedence. People need to be held accountable. When there's no accountability and no consequence, like the family said, there is no lesson learned, and you can expect this to continue.
Yeah, very heart-wrenching statements from his family. You know, I guess, you know, they say they have ashes in a box, and she's been free for the last 5 years, and now she's going to be on probation. So difficult outcome for the family, to be sure. Nicole, thank you very much. Good to see you. Nicole Parker.
Thank you. Thanks.
So two powerful athletes who have used their voices to protect women from competing against biological males in sports. They are now